Welcome back to the Trauma and Addiction Recovery Center's YouTube channel. Today we are continuing our discussion of the basic 5 of healthy boundaries. In our last video, we talked about the S of the basic 5, which is sustain your boundaries with follow through. So remember that the basic principles of healthy boundaries are for you, avoid threats and ultimatums, sustain your boundaries with follow through, influence others by making requests, and change yourself with your boundaries. Today, we're going to move on to the I of the basic 5, which is influence others by making requests. Our boundaries, of course, will have an influence on others. We'll be changing our behavior, and so other people are automatically going to need to adjust theirs. But another way to influence people is to make requests. It's easy to confuse boundaries, demands, and requests. Often people think that they're setting boundaries, but really what they're doing is making demands. And sometimes people are making demands but believe that they're making requests. Of course, as we discussed in our video on boundaries are for you, we are powerless over other people. So demands don't usually work. Even if they get someone to comply with what we're demanding in the short term, in the long term, people will always prove to us that we can't control them. So forcing other people to change is not really what's possible. In reality, when we want someone to do something, all we can really do is make a request. Even when it sounds like a demand, it's really a request. We're making our preferences known to the other people or the other person, and they have to decide what they're going to do with that information. Our boundaries are often how we're going to take care of ourselves, depending on the other person's response to our request. It can be surprising to learn that people often want to say yes when we make a request for something. Generally speaking, people do care about us and they want us to be happy. However, one of the reasons making requests can be so difficult is that people don't have to say yes. They can say no, or maybe, or I'll think about it, or ask me later. And so that freedom that other people have and not necessarily saying yes to what we're asking them makes the whole process of making requests very vulnerable. We have to be willing to hear no from other people in order for our request to be effective. Otherwise, if we can't hear the no, then we're simply falling back into the trap of making demands and trying to control other people again. Some other reasons that I frequently hear that people use to resist making requests is this idea that the other person should know what I want or need, especially if it's my if it's my loved one, my significant other, my husband or wife or partner. That if they really loved me, that they would know what I wanted or needed, and I shouldn't have to ask for it. And in fact, if I have to ask for it, it just ruins it. It doesn't mean as much if I have to ask for this thing. And them just showing up with it, them just giving me what I want or need without me having to ask for it kind of proves that they love me. And another kind of corollary to that is this idea that it's common sense. They should know that I want that or that I need that, and that it's common sense. While it may be true that someone should know what you want or need, what I want to ask is that actually really helping you get what you want or need, get your wants and needs met? And you know, the truth is that what seems like common sense to me may not be common sense to someone else. They may not really know that that is something that I want or need without me saying it out loud. And this is particularly true in early recovery, especially for sex and porn addicts who are in early recovery and their partners. It's important to keep this in mind because when I have a belief that somebody should know what I want or need, I'm really making an assumption that that person has a capacity for empathy and perspective taking that my addicted loved one may not have right now. Addiction by its nature actually impairs an addict's ability to have empathy and to perspective take and even to be emotionally connected to himself and others. And so it's going to be really difficult for an addict who's new in recovery to be able to have that kind of sense of intuitive knowing of what his partner wants or needs. And so in early recovery, especially, it's just important to be really direct. It's important to really express myself clearly and directly to my addicted loved one and let them know what it is I'm wanting or needing and requesting specific behaviors of my partner. Another reason we don't ask for what we want or need and make requests is because we don't know what we want or need. And this can be true for a lot of partners, that partners have sometimes spent a long time, sometimes a lifetime, being disconnected from their own wants or needs. And so if I don't know what I need, then it's going to be really hard for me to ask for that. So all of these reasons are why it's important to get support, get help, either get help from some other partners who are recovering, or get help through therapy with someone who understands the issues of sex addiction and betrayal trauma, because that can be hard work to get reconnected to what it is I'm wanting or needing. So we're going to talk about how to make requests in our final two videos. For now, though, I want to talk about what do boundaries have to do with making requests. My boundaries, or what I will or won't do to take care of myself and my responsibilities, are often my response to my loved one's answer to my requests. So not every request is going to have a boundary associated with it. For example, if I want to eat at a particular restaurant tonight and my partner wants to eat somewhere else, I'm probably not going to have a boundary associated with that. However, some requests do require action on my part to take care of myself. I'd like to use Kate as an example. Kate recently discovered that her husband of 15 years has been having an affair. And what's more than that, she discovered that he's been having affairs all along throughout their 15-year marriage. And so there's going to be all kinds of boundaries that Kate will want to establish here after discovering that. But one particular request that she made of her husband is that he seek counseling and get help for this issue. So his answer to her request that he seek counseling is going to determine some of the boundaries she establishes next. So if he says no, that he won't get counseling, then she's going to have to consider how she'll take care of herself. And she can do that in a lot of different ways, including she may seek counseling herself, even if her husband doesn't choose to go. She may choose to have separate sleeping arrangements in the house, or have an in-house separation or an out-of-house separation where one of them moves out of the house for a period of time so she can determine what it is she wants to do. Kate may also consult with an attorney to determine what her legal and financial options are. Kate may establish boundaries around having sexual abstinence right now while she and her husband figure out what their next steps are. A lot of these boundaries Kate may establish anyway, independent of her request that he seek counseling. But if her husband is unwilling to get help for his sexual acting out, that gives Kate a lot of information, and it definitely points to Kate's needs to figure out how to take care of herself and her responsibilities, which may include children if that's appropriate. The benefits of making requests are that you're more likely to get what you want, and you're less likely to get reactions of anger or rage or defensiveness, or even passive-aggressive behavior where your loved one may comply with your demand in the moment, but get back at you later in some way. The other benefit is that requests have a lot of space for negotiation when that's appropriate. Whereas demands tend to shut the door on discussion and any kind of negotiation, and they tend to lead to a negative response from the other person, requests can open the door to the kind of discussion and compromise. So some requests that you make are non-negotiable. What I mean by that is if the other person refuses to agree with your request, then you will take action to take care of yourself. For example, Jack just discovered that his significant other, Janet, has been having an affair, and he requested she ends the affair, and she said no. So Jack is going to need to take some action to take care of himself in this situation, including potentially ending the relationship or some other action that will help him take care of himself and his responsibilities. But his request is non-negotiable. He's not willing to negotiate with her around her continuing her affair. But other requests may be negotiable. For example, Kate's husband said no, that he wouldn't go to therapy to seek help for his acting out behaviors. But the reason for that may be that he was too uncomfortable to go to therapy on his own, that seemed too scary for him, or just too uncomfortable. And in that kind of situation, there may be a negotiation possible, like what if Kate and her husband went to therapy together and engaged in some couples therapy at first. Kate's husband might be willing to do that, and that would be a negotiated result. So when you're making requests, consider if there's room for negotiation. This may include, for example, if your loved one said no to a request, that you might ask him, under what conditions would you be willing to say yes? And then whatever his response is, it's important for you to consider, are those conditions something you can live with? And is that something that you're willing to negotiate around? So again, when you're thinking about your healthy boundaries, it's important to consider the role that requests have in helping you get what you want and need and helping you take care of yourself. Remember to consider if there are requests that you can make, and then make those requests in a respectful, calm, clear way. And we'll talk more about how to do that in our final 2 videos. Stay tuned for our next video where we're going to talk about the C of the basic 5 of healthy boundaries. Change yourself with your boundaries. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. If you need help creating your own boundaries, or for more information about the Trauma and Addiction Recovery Center, including our treatment programs for men struggling with problematic sexual behavior, or for partners who have experienced betrayal trauma, please visit our website at www.tarkrecovery.com or email us at info@tarkrecovery.com. You can click above to watch the next video in this series on healthy boundaries. We hope you'll also like this video and subscribe to the Trauma and Addiction Recovery Center's channel to continue to receive helpful information about recovering from sexual addiction and betrayal trauma. Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.